For 5 days, the rescue crews dug toward 2 dead men, nearly a kilometer underground, through rock too hard to blast. On the 6th day, a miner stopped digging because from somewhere under the rockfall, he could hear singing. April the 25th, 2006. Beaconsfield, Tasmania, a small town built on top of a gold mine. At 9:26 that night, the ground shook. A minor earthquake, barely worth a headline. But nearly a kilometer below the town, it brought the rock down. 17 men were underground that night. 14 made it out. One man, Larry Knight, did not survive the fall of rock. And 2 men simply vanished from the radio. Todd Russell and Brant Webb had been working high up in a steel cage, on the arm of a lifting machine, fixing mesh to the tunnel wall, directly under the rock that came down. Tons of rock landed on that cage. And the cage, somehow, held. What was left inside was a pocket about the size of a dining table, 1.5 meters high. Webb had been knocked out by falling stone. Russell was pinned, rock across his legs, in the dark. They freed what could be freed, and then there was nothing to do but wait. Darkness, rock water dripping through the cracks, and the weight of a town's worth of stone overhead. On the surface, the search had already turned grim. Larry Knight's body was recovered. Nobody said it out loud, but the digging toward the other 2 had become a recovery for 2 more. To keep from coming apart in the dark, the 2 men sang. The only song they both knew all the way through, an old Kenny Rogers song called The Gambler. They sang it again and again. On the 6th day, 2 miners working the rescue, Pat Ball and Steve Saltmarsh, stopped. Through the rockfall, faint, impossible, singing. 5 days of digging for the dead, and the dead were singing back. The news went up the shaft and around the world within hours. They're alive. And then came the hard part. The rock between them was some of the hardest in the mine. Blasting could bring the whole roof down. Reaching 2 living men would take another 9 days. A plastic pipe was threaded through the rock to the cage. Down it went water, food, fresh air for the lungs and voices for the mind, even an iPod. The rescuers ground forward centimeters at a time, machines first, then hand tools, terrified of one more fall. 14 days after the earth shook, at 4:54 in the morning of May the 9th, the 2 men were pulled clear of the cage. At 5:58, the lift reached the surface, and Todd Russell and Brant Webb walked out of the mine on their own legs. Larry Knight's funeral had been postponed, again and again, for one reason, so that the 2 men he'd worked beside could be there. It was held that same day. Hours after walking out of the ground, Todd Russell stood among 1,000 mourners. 14 days, nearly a kilometer of rock. A steel cage that refused to crush, and a song that made a digging man stop and listen.